Yes, he's the king of the infinite realms of the dead, but he's also an introvert. Written by Bongo Balderdash. Read to you by Evie is Evil. This fic is rated for general audiences. No archive warnings apply. This fic is a male/male fic, with the main ships being Danny Fenton/Duke Thomas. The fandoms are Danny Phantom and Batman All-Media types. Summary. When Duke mentions a boyfriend none of the family have heard of before, out of the blue one day, there's a mad scramble to find out more. He likes space, he's known Duke for years, and apparently he's shy. But surely it's only a matter of time until they finally meet him. In hindsight, maybe they should have asked if this mysterious boyfriend was human first. Author's notes. Based on this Duke/Danny prompt on Tumblr. There's a link there. I'm going to link to the actual fanfiction where you can find that link at the bottom in the description of this video. The title's kind of goofy because I couldn't think of a good one, Lamau, but hopefully the actual fic's okay. No warnings except some descriptions of eldritch entities and a few threats of violence. So let's just get into it. The first time Duke brings up Danny, it's February 13th, and Tim is making his inability to think of fun things to do with Bernard the problem of everyone present. Everyone present just so happens to consist of Steph, Damien, and miraculously Jason, along with the aforementioned Tim. Just get him some flowers and chocolate or something. I don't know what the big deal is. Jason scoffs, tossing a piece of popcorn into his mouth before promptly throwing another at Tim. I don't want to be cliché, Tim whines, not even flinching when it nails him in the forehead. It's our first Valentine's together, you know? And I really like Bernard. I want to do these kinds of things with him. Damien crosses his arms, looking increasingly bored with the conversation, and trying very hard to keep his focus on the nature documentary they'd been watching before Tim had entered the living room and thrown himself between Steph and the arm of the sofa, with the most pitiful sigh they'd heard from him in months. Drake, if he has somehow managed to see past your innumerable faults and date you regardless, then I assure you that being cliché is not going to deter him. For some reason, this doesn't comfort Tim at all. Why not do something we did for Valentine's Day way back when? Steph suggests with a sharp smile. That stuff was fun. He looks at her blankly, gaze reeking skepticism. Steph, we covered the Batmobile in heart-shaped confetti. I cannot do that with Bernard. You guys give terrible advice. There's a brief silence in the room, where everyone kind of agrees with him, but doesn't want to lose any dignity by admitting it, before Duke walks through the door. He spends about half a second processing the scene before him, before coming to a conclusion and sending them all a wry smile. Something up? Yes, Tim heaves. I'm trying to think of something cute to do with Bernard for our first Valentine's Day together, but these guys know literally nothing about functional romance. I don't want to be cheesy, but I'm not going to be taking him on a glittery joyride in the Batmobile, because that can only end in disaster. He finishes, sending a very pointed look at Steph. Steph, to her credit, only grins in response, not an ounce of regret on her face. Duke hums contemplatively. Okay, I need to hear more about that joyride, but yeah, I know how you feel. I was so nervous on my first Valentine's with Danny. I mean, if you need inspo, we got to bust down to the Bowery and ate pastries at that one vegan bakery. I wanted to take him stargazing, but neither of us had the money to get out that far. So we just sat in the park when it got dark, and he told me where all the constellations would be. It was sweet. I'm pretty sure you can see at least some stars in Bristol, though. So maybe you two could do it properly? He says it so casually, but everyone else in the room is sitting stock still by the end of it, blindsided by shock. Steph is the first to break out of her stupor, rocking forward, wide-eyed in her space next to Tim, effectively crushing him between the arm of the sofa, and either not noticing or entirely uncaring. And considering the bat training, it's definitely the latter. You have a boyfriend? Duke looks at her, slightly bewildered. Have I never mentioned Danny before? Yeah, I have a boyfriend. I have no idea how this hasn't come up. Damn, congrats, man. Jason whistles. Since when? Since, like, a few years ago. I've known him longer than I've known any of you. Damien suddenly looks a little more interested in the conversation.
And you managed to keep the secret of your paramour from us this entire time?
What? It wasn't a secret or anything. My love life must have just never come up. I don't think you'll have ever met him, 'cause he's pretty shy, but he's so sweet. He's obsessed with space, is why I wanted to take him stargazing that Valentine's. He mentioned doing it a lot in his hometown, since the light pollution wasn't so bad over there. Dude, Tim starts slowly. You are literally the most stable person in this house that isn't Alfred. Duke, for some reason, snorts at that. Sure, why not? The second time Danny is brought up, it's because Damien told Dick that Thomas has a boyfriend, and Dick decides that he has an obligation as the older brother of the family to be teasingly nosy. Ever since he found out, he's been waiting for the chance to say something to Duke. He figures talking about relationships is a good way to bond. And he also figures that if he can find out more about this mysterious boyfriend before anyone else does, he gets bragging rights about being Duke's favorite brother. But that's neither here nor there. An opportunity arrives at about 8 in the morning on a Sunday. Dick's up early for the drive back to Bloodhaven, and Duke's up for the beginning of his vigilante day shift, eating a breakfast bagel with lox and cream cheese. Morning, Dick chirps, taking his seat on one of the stools next to him, holding a cup of coffee in one hand and a bowl of cereal in the other. Hey Dick, what's up? You're not usually in the kitchen this early, he greets. Dick turns his stool just a tad to face the boy better, sending him a smile over his mug. I've got work in the afternoon, so I wanted to give myself enough time to get back, he explains lightly, before giving him a slightly mischievous look. And I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk to my second littlest brother. Should I be worried about what that involves? Duke laughs, somewhere between joking and wary. Fair enough. Bonding in the Wayne household does tend to come with a note of foreboding. Not this time, though, if Dick has a say in it. Well, a little birdie told me you had a boyfriend I didn't know anything about. How'd you even meet him? Oh, right, probably should have expected this. He huffs, gaze drifting down his bagel again, recalling something with soft eyes. We met a little bit before the whole 0-year thing. Quite literally ran into each other, and I don't know, we just got talking. Clicked, I guess. We started dating a while after. We're kind of long distance since he doesn't live in Gotham. But Danny stuck around through a lot of mess, and it's just nice, you know? I like that we can just be normal together, even if everything else is weird. Admittedly, this is melting Dick's heart a little. He can't say he'd actually dwelled much on what Duke's life was like before being taken in as a Wayne ward, even if he'd heard about him meeting Bruce during the 0-year and helping the We Are Robin movement. He feels a little guilty for not considering it before, but he's really glad Duke has something normal and consistent to help him through it. Lord knows finding out he's a meta and then having to deal with the parental baggage that came with it must have been rough. Speaking of which, does he know you're a meta? Dick asks, tone broaching on something more careful, hoping it isn't a rude question. Duke smiles, fondness lilting the edges. Yeah, I told him first chance I got. Wanted all the help I could get figuring everything out. Plus, it was kind of cathartic having a freak out with him about it. You just can't do that kind of thing with B. Dick nods sagely. He's way too emotionally stunted for it. And then quieter. I'm happy he's good to you, Duke. You sound like a really great couple. Yeah, Duke replies. I'd like to think so too. Inevitably, Bruce finds out. There's a lot of things he could say to begin this conversation. Many tactful, sensible openers in order to ensure an honest and healthy discussion about the relationship he'd been wholly unaware Duke was in. There are many reasonable ways to go about this. Don't you think telling your partner about your meta abilities is a risk to your vigilante identity? Is what he says instead. Duke heaves a heavy sigh, turning around from where he'd been looking at the poetry section of the Manor's library to face him. Already, Bruce wants nothing more than to rewind to 5 seconds ago, where he hadn't opened with that. Never let it be said that Batman knows how to start a conversation. He doesn't live in Gotham, so he isn't as familiar with the abilities of its vigilantes. He begins slowly, tinged with exasperation. Plus, I trust him. I haven't said anything explicitly, but if he knows, he knows. And if he wants to talk about it, we'll talk about it. Simple as that. Good Lord, why is his second youngest ward more emotionally mature than him? The part of him that's stuck perpetually in Dark Knight mode wants to keep questioning him, but miraculously, the awkward father cowardice wins out. It's not like he can't find out more later. Feeling distinctly out of his depth, he asks, "Will he be invited to dinner at some point?" Duke looks starkly bewildered at how easily he dropped the interrogation, and Bruce doesn't want to navigate what that says about his communication skills right now, so he files it away to have a crisis about later. I don't know if it'd be anytime soon. He's kinda shy, and the whole billionaire family thing is pretty intimidating, B. Oh, Bruce stilts, looking lost. Right, of course. Well, tell him he's always welcome anyway. The conversation ends there, mostly because Bruce wanted to run away from the situation before his foot could go any further into his mouth. He really wanted to find out more about this Danny character, but a first name isn't enough to go off of when he doesn't know what the boy looks like. Maybe he shouldn't worry so much, though. The boy is a civilian, after all, and has apparently known Duke far longer than they have. Maybe he should lay off the investigation for a little. A few months pass by in the interlude of vague details and brief allusions to Duke's boyfriend, but eventually it comes to a head. In a warehouse they've been taken hostage in, with ominous sigils scattered circular about the floor. Nightwing, Batman, Robin, Red Robin, and Signal all tied around individual support beams outside the summoning circle, each of them struggling with incessant fervor, unknowing of what the occultists are attempting to unleash, and unknowing of whether they'll succeed. Damien hasn't stopped cursing everyone in the room out since he woke up, resulting in him muttering darkly beneath the tightly bound gag. It should have been easy for them to break out. Their restraints looked like nothing but rope, and none of their armor has been taken. But the binds must have been enchanted, because for all the struggle, they've yet to break free. It seems like all they can do now is wait for the others to find them and get them out. They fall silent when the chanting begins, focusing solely on trying to escape their bounds, only becoming more desperate as the sigils begin to glow in irradiated green. The room turns dark in contrast, specks of dustlight becoming stars, and walls becoming unseen void. Symbols appear to lift from the floor like layers of paint or aurora borealis. And it's fitting the way gravity seems to disperse, feeling as if their restraints are the only thing keeping them grounded. Duke is the first of them to go still, but all of them freeze when the entity emerges, lifting from a single point and expanding outwards like a primeval atom. The being unfurls into shades of white and searing emerald, frilled layers flaring out and shifting like feathery limbs beneath invisible waves. Their presence alone fills the whole warehouse, stretching out infinitely beyond what feels like 1,000 eyes stare and stare and stare. "My lord!" one of the occultists call out, seemingly the leader, desperate reverence coating their voice in sickening honey. "Balance of the aether, door between realms, king of stars dead, you have answered our call. An honor it is to be in your presence." The entity is silent. The weight of it is a universe pressing against their backs. Warier now, the leader continues. "We called upon you for a great cause, my lord. This world has forgotten their worship of your gift, has become impure without the light of your power. We offer you a vassal to walk this earth and lead us." Something in the air sharpens at the declaration, and the expression of the entity is impossible to discern. But suddenly, they feel interested. "A vassal," the being croons, voice of glaciers snapping, and the sound of galaxies make, unheard by human ears.
You believe the universe is in need of a vassal. Do I not already walk? Am I not already witnessed?
The leader gestures a silent command, and another occultist goes towards them, heading straight for where the signal is restrained. His binds are cut with an intricately patterned knife, and he's brought up before the entity. Batman's pleas for them to use him instead are lost to some unknown solar wind. But Duke seems nothing but calm. Catatonic, surely, Bruce thinks, but there's nothing he can do.
Perhaps not a vassal then, but a sacrifice to your grace nonetheless, my lord,
the leader exclaims, grabbing signal in what would be a bruising grip if not for the body armor. The weight of the entity's stare is utterly crushing.
One of Gotham's sacred knights, an offer to your realm.
There is a brief moment where nothing happens, and then, all at once, what appears as the being's face is very, very close.
You make him bleed,
the entity whispers, rage shaking like tectonic plates in the prelude to an earthquake.
You make him bleed, and I promise you, you will never stop bleeding. You will be sent to eternal rest, and you will not rest. I will tear you infinitely apart.
My lord! The leader trembles as his followers begin to back away on unstable feet. The being's voice is strangely quiet, but they suppose that the Big Bang wouldn't have been all that loud to them either.
Leave.
Hair-trigger compliance. Every single occultist runs like God is chasing them out that warehouse, snapping at their feet. They don't so much as glance at the bats they're leaving behind. The room feels less pressurized at their absence, tension leaking away, even as the entity remains looming before them, quiet and still. Batman is about to say something, call out to signal or thank the entity for their mercy or something, but before he can do more than open his mouth, the voice lilts, softer than earth.
Starlight, are you all right?
The fear in the room is replaced by naked shock and bewilderment. The entity has eyes only for signal, and he doesn't seem afraid or confused in the slightest. His posture is easy, relaxed. And then he does something insane. Duke leans forward and kisses the cheek of the entity's incomprehensibly large face, and, with a tone utterly fond, tells them,
Yeah, I'm okay, Danny.
Hold the phone. Hold the phone now.
Danny?
Dick shrieks, completely throwing away his concern for his brother's life in the face of an eldritch monster at the revelation.
No way. What? That's Danny?
The others not already present pick that precise moment to burst in through the doors. Red Hood wielding guns, Spoiler wielding batarangs, and Black Bat dropping low into a fighting stance.
The cavalry has...
Jason starts, before pausing and taking in the scene they've jumped into. 4 out of 5 bat hostages in binds, the last of them leaning affectionately into something straight out of a sci-fi horror, and no occultists in sight. What? This really isn't how I was expecting to meet Duke's mystery boyfriend. Tim breathes airily. Are they going into shock, or just completely emotionally retreating from the situation? No one even bothers to scold him for using names in the field. Steph blinks, straightening up, looking at Duke and the entity, and then back at Tim's pallid complexion.
You're joking,
she says, voice flat.
Tell me you're joking.
If it's any consolation,
the entity, Danny apparently, interrupts, making everyone else in the room, barring Duke, jump.
I also wasn't expecting to meet Duke's vigilante family like this.
Dick splutters.
How were you even expecting us to meet then?
Well, Danny begins, before pausing. A sound between a hum and 1,000 ringing bells fills the air, and that's all the warning they get for the flash of searing light succeeding. Like it'd never been there in the first place, the entity folds back into himself, shrinking and fading into more comprehensible colors, until all that's left in the wake is a completely normal-looking teenage boy. Black hair, blue eyes, casual t-shirt and jeans, accentuated by a bright yet sheepish grin. If they hadn't just seen him towering over the whole warehouse and frightening the lives out of those occultists, they'd have never expected anything was wrong with him at all. As it is, though, the image is hard to unsee. Maybe looking a little more like this? Duke, Tim says somberly, slumping against the support beam he's still tied to, resignation written over every inch of him. I can't believe you let me think you were the normal one in our family. Duke just laughs at them. Hey, that's on you. I never said Danny wasn't the king of the dead. I just said he was shy. And that's it for... Yes, he's the king of the infinite realms of the dead, but he's also an introvert. Author's notes. Hope you enjoyed. I based the descriptions of Eldritch Danny on my Peacock AU. There's a link here in the fic. But I didn't want to put it into the actual series just because I wasn't planning on adding any romantic relationships. Have a good day, everyone. Smiley face. And reader's notes. Sorry if my voice sounded weird in this one. Today was a little rough on me, so that caused my voice to just do funny things. But I recorded this, and I'm gonna have fun editing it. But, thanks for listening, and bye!